Good afternoon. Chris asked me to come and talk to you about how the Violence Against Women Act has changed my life. And so I thought I'd make this really personal because it really has changed my life. On July 9th, 1994, I woke up, walked to my doorway, opened my bedroom door, and there was a man standing there. He was naked, except for a pair of green plaid boxer shorts. In one hand was 2 ropes, in another hand was a knife. That man was my husband. He had been removed from my home 3 weeks earlier because I got an order of protection when he pulled that same knife on me when we were having an argument about a relationship that he was having with another woman. He subsequently was able to subdue me. I was tied to the bed, a scarf was stuffed in my mouth, the knife was put to my throat, and I was raped in the bedroom of my own home. Now, I did get away. And as bad as that nightmare was, my nightmare did not end there. It continued when I went to a local hospital. Now, at the time of my assault, I was a nurse manager of an emergency room 5 minutes from my home. I chose not to go there because I'm thinking, how do you ask the staff to do what we used to call rape kit on the boss? So I chose to go to a different hospital. When I got to that facility, the first nurse I met was a triage nurse. She knew me, I knew her. She was crying, I was crying. We were both useless. They stick me in a room, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. Then in comes the doctor. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't talk to me. He walks past me, goes over to a cabinet, takes a box off the shelf, opens the box, and begins to read the directions. At which point I said to myself, he doesn't have a clue. He doesn't know what he's doing. Now, it's a nightmare. I mean, who wants to go in the emergency room for sutures and have the doctor read the package and how to suture a cut? Not good, right? Unfortunately, that's what was happening to me. But fortunately for me, I was a nurse. So his not knowing what he was doing was probably the best thing that happened to me that day because it now put me in control. I said to him, Doc, if you let me, I'll show you how to do this. And I showed him how to collect my evidence from my body and how to use that box to get evidence that I knew I was going to need because I knew I was going to go forward and I knew I was going to take my husband to court. So that worked for me. But what if I wasn't a nurse? What if I was just an average Jane Doe who had the courage to show up at that emergency room? And what if I didn't know what to do? What if I didn't know what to expect? What then? So how did VAWA help me? Well, lucky enough, VAWA passed about 2 months after my horrible experience in that hospital. And in 1995, the county that I lived in got some money that was funneled through our state, and they began thinking about how can we better improve services to sexual assault survivors. And Quinlan wrote an article in the New York Times. Some legislators read the article, they secured a grant, and they decided they were going to set up a program in Westchester County. By accident, I read the newspaper, and I said, whoa. They're going to train nurses to do exams on rape victims? And I said, well, if I can show the doc how to do my own, I bet I can do someone else's. So I found out where they were meeting, and I just kind of showed up. They didn't kick me out. I joined the task force and became the coordinator for the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program in the county of Westchester, where we trained registered nurses, and there were exactly 4 of us. But we provided 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week coverage of forensic examiners to 9 of the 10 hospitals in my county. I then, thank goodness, was able to go on, and now I'm working in the sexual assault response team in the Bronx. As a result of monies, programs have flourished. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sexual assault nurse examiner and sexual assault forensic examiner programs around the country so that thousands of women will not have to go through what I went through in the hospital. Unfortunately, I can't say that every woman or every man or every child that's assaulted won't have to go through what I had to go through, but we're getting there. The Army's reached out. I've been able to travel around the country, training, like Chris said, doctors, nurses, law enforcement officers. I had the pleasure of training police officers from Italy about what goes on in that exam room. Just 3 days ago, JAG officers from the United States Army about what goes on in that exam room. And then last September, through the Department of Justice, I was lucky enough to travel to Nairobi, Kenya, to train doctors and nurses there for 2 weeks about what goes on in that exam room. So what happened to me in 1994 was probably the worst nightmare of my life. However, I've come to realize that 1994 did not happen to me because of what I did, but because of everything that I will do, and thanks to VAWA, I'm allowed to do that. So thank you all so much for being here, and we look forward to your questions.